Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. This time I'm going to demonstrate two options for turning a Windows 10 PC or laptop into a ChromeOS device. This can be a good choice for those seeking a new operating system but who do not want to install a traditional version of Linux. So let's go and get started. Chromebooks are laptop computers that run a cloud-based operating system called ChromeOS. This is very secure as well as being fast and very easy to use. In ChromeOS, almost all applications run in a browser. So, if a computer is mainly used for web and related activities, including social media, email access, running Google Docs or the online version of Microsoft Office, or indeed using other online software such as the Photopea photo editor, then ChromeOS is an excellent no-fuss operating system. ChromeOS is based on an open source operating system called ChromeOS, which is one of the Chromium projects. Two versions of ChromeOS are currently available for installation on many desktop and laptop computers, with the first being Google's ChromeOS Flex and the second, FydeOS, which we'll turn to later in the video. But let's start with ChromeOS Flex. So, here we are on a computer currently running Windows 10, and it's actually an Odyssey J4105 based mini PC, which does not officially support Windows 11. And so we're going to replace Windows 10 with ChromeOS Flex. Just before we do this, be aware that installing ChromeOS Flex will delete all data from all storage devices on the system. And I do mean all storage devices. So, if you choose to replace Windows 10 with ChromeOS Flex, make sure that you back up all your data first and have the details available to log back in to your online accounts. And with all this noted, let's return to the ChromeOS Flex web page. As we can see, the strapline is refresh the devices you already own at no cost with a modern cloud-based operating system. So let's click on Try ChromeOS Flex, and for some reason we have to then scroll a little bit like that, and if we want to use it at home, we click here. Google only guarantees ChromeOS Flex to work on computers on a certified models list. And this list is available here. Let's just have a quick look. It is a very extensive list. Let's go down here and expand all. And you can see everything's listed by manufacturer. And there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of computers on this list. However, in practice, I've found that ChromeOS Flex works on most laptops and all desktop PCs that meet the system requirements of a 64-bit processor, at least 4 GB of RAM, and at least 16 GB of storage. The only constraint is that ChromeOS Flex will not work on hardware with NVIDIA graphics. But if you have a computer with AMD or Intel integrated graphics or an AMD graphics card, things should work just fine. And as we're about to see, we can test that things work before doing an install. So let's scroll down here to find the link to the next page. There it is, called Next Page, where we're going to create a USB install drive. And as you may have noticed, I have a drive plugged in, which needs to be at least 8 GB in size. And do note that everything on the USB drive will be deleted. Google provides two ways to write the USB drive, the first of which is by adding the Chromebook recovery utility to a Chrome browser and doing things online. And this used to be the only option available, and I have demonstrated it in a previous video. However, if we keep scrolling down, we can also click to download an image file, which I'm going to save in my downloads folder like that, and we'll just speed on through as the download takes place. And there we are, it's finished. Next, we need some software to write the image to our USB drive, and here we're going to use Rufus, although you could use other software like the Lena Etcher. But here on the Rufus website, we're going to scroll down for downloading, which is there, and click on the first link to download the file. Next, we'll close our browser and go to the folder where we downloaded the files and run up Rufus, which does not need to be installed. And we can see it's already picked up our USB drive, so we just need to select our ChromeOS Flex image. There it is. And finally, we'll click on Start, where Rufus checks we're doing what we really want to do. It'll delete all data from the USB drive. And there we are, our ChromeOS Flex Live Media is now being created. So let's speed on through. There we go, and as you might have noticed, the very end of that imaging took a very long time, so do be patient and let Rufus finish its magic. Anyway, we can now close these things down as we're about to shut down Windows 10 so we can run ChromeOS Flex from the USB drive. So let's reboot. And as the system restarts, it's important to note that your PC will need to be set to boot from a USB drive. And I'll leave some notes on how to do this in the video description. And if you're a technical person who's wondering, ChromeOS Flex does support secure boot. And we're now being welcomed to ChromeOS Flex. So let's click on Get Started and then try it first so we can test it out on our hardware. Next, we need to connect to a Wi-Fi network because we haven't got an Ethernet connection here, so I will do that. After which we get this screen which allows us to log in under various scenarios, for example using a personal Google account, although for testing I'm not going to do any of these, I'm just going to click down here on Browse as Guest, which is an option that allows anybody to access basic functionality on a Chromebook without logging in to a Google account. So we'll accept the terms of service and continue. And here we are on the desktop in ChromeOS Flex. And things might be a little sluggish because we are running here from a USB drive. Anyway, at the bottom of the screen here we have what's called the shelf with some things pinned to it. On the left we have an application launcher, there we are, and on the right we have a menu where I'm going to go straight to Settings and search for Display like that, and just make things slightly easier to see here in video. And it's also worth visiting the display settings regardless of whether you want to scale things up like that, because we can check if the graphics drivers are supporting our hardware and running at the right resolution for our monitor or laptop panel. And here they are, because we're running in standard 1920 1080 HD. And at this stage, it's now basically a question of checking that everything works as it should be. Although by definition at this point, our Wi-Fi or Ethernet connection must be okay, and we've just checked the display. But do test that your mouse or trackpad or other rodent simulator is fine, and I think we'll just open up a browser. There we go, and we'll try going to explainingcomputers.com if I can spell it right. Looks like I have, and we will scroll down and go to the YouTube channel. And the reason I've done this is so we've got some audio output. We clearly have got some audio output, that video is playing, so things are working here just fine. But if you don't have any audio output, bring up the menu down here and click on the little arrow by the volume control. This is the volume control. Click on the arrow over there just to see if the wrong audio output device is selected. So here, for example, we're using HDMI audio, that is what we want. It could have been here on speaker internal, which means the analog 3.5mm audio jacks on this system, but we want HDMI. I know people have been caught out by this in the past. If you have a webcam, it's also worth checking that that works. So for example, we will visit webcamtest.com. And on this system, we will not find it working. Yes, we will consent to cookies. We spend our lives consenting to cookies, don't we? We can't see a webcam here because there isn't a webcam on this system. But if you do have a webcam, it might be worth doing this test. Similarly, if you need to use Bluetooth, check that that is functional. And if you have a printer, also plug it in and see if you can print. And I'd note that any printer verified to work with a Chromebook should be okay. But with everything working here, let's progress to an install. And so what we'll now do is go back to the menu here and exit guest, like that, and select the option Install ChromeOS Flex. And as you may be able to see if you've got amazing eyes, it does remind us that everything on the device will be deleted, but we know about that, so we'll click on Install ChromeOS Flex, which brings up another check that we really do want to install ChromeOS Flex and erase our hard drive, which we do, and so I'll now click on Install. And that's it. It's a very straightforward one-click installer. We've nothing more to do other than to use the magic of filmmaking to speed on through. And there we are. Our computer is now on a countdown to shut itself down, so we'll speed on through and let it do that. There it is, it's gone. And we'll now remove our USB drive and turn back on the computer. And here we are, booting into ChromeOS Flex, which we've used to replace Windows 10. Once again, it's saying welcome and allowing us to get started. And once again, I need to feed it with some Wi-Fi details. And then this time I am going to log on using a Google account. I'll select personal use there and next. Oh look, it's checking for updates, although it is worth noting that once you've got ChromeOS Flex up and running, all future updates will happen in the background. And because it's updated, it's now doing a reboot, and it's ready, I think, for me to enter my account details. And with that complete, I just need to accept the terms and conditions, and I'll agree to sync settings, apps, etc., although this could be changed. And I'll allow Google to collect hardware data to help it improve ChromeOS Flex. But I'll stick with using my Google account password. Skip this kind of stuff. Who do they think they are? Microsoft. Scale with display. Stick with an auto theme. And we're all set. Wow, here we are using ChromeOS Flex on our former Windows 10 computer. And because I allowed the sync option, it's even picked up the backgrounds and applications I use on a ChromeOS Flex device I have connected to my television. So, just to give you a brief feel of what you can do, let's use the magic of filmmaking to nip forward in time, where I've changed the desktop background. As you can see, so many fantastic options are available. I've also gone to the menu and selected a GB keyboard, which makes my life slightly easier. And I've also brought up lots of cloud services and applications, YouTube, as you can see, Gmail, Microsoft Mail, the online version of Microsoft Word, a Google Docs file, the script for this video, no less, and also the Photopea image editing application. Let's now turn to FydeOS, which is what we're running here, and as we can see uses Microsoft Bing as its web browser. It is Google free, although it is very similar in operation to ChromeOS Flex. Back in Windows on the FydeOS website, if we click on Download, we can see that several versions are available, including FydeOS for PC and FydeOS for You. The latter is customized for specific end-of-life hardware, including many Microsoft Surface tablets and early Google Pixel Chromebooks. Meanwhile, FydeOS for PC will work on most laptop and desktop computers that do not have NVIDIA graphics. FydeOS for You costs $19.99, £14.99 or €18.99 annually after a 90-day trial period. Meanwhile, FydeOS for PC is described as free-ish, which means that it's free to download and use and receives free maintenance and security updates. However, there is a fee of $3.19, £2.49 or €2.99 for major updates to the next version, which occur about twice a year. Unlike ChromeOS Flex, FydeOS can run some Android applications. And it also allows sign-in using a local account or a FydeOS account rather than a Google account. However, do be aware that FydeOS does not support secure boot and cannot be installed on Mac hardware. Other than this, FydeOS should work on most 64-bit computers that do not have NVIDIA graphics. Over in the FydeOS for PC tab, 4 downloads are available, with the one required depending on your graphics hardware. So, there's a version for any PC or laptop with AMD graphics, and 3 versions for hardware with integrated Intel graphics. And there's lots of information on the website to help you select the correct version. Here, for our J4105 Celeron system, I needed the Intel Slim file. And in Windows 10, I then wrote this to a USB drive using Rufus, just as we did earlier for ChromeOS Flex. Once the drive is written, I would strongly recommend booting from it and testing things out before committing to an install. As you can see, we first select a language and keyboard before clicking on Getting Started. And then, as with ChromeOS Flex, we can select to try things out first, where, again as we saw previously, we need to set up our network connection and accept some terms of service. On the next screen, there isn't in this version of FydeOS an option to browse as guest, so we'll select to use a local account, and click on Use Local Account, and then enter our username and password. I'll then stick with password for signing in, and click on Next. After which, we'll scale the display, stick with the auto theme, and oh look, we can get started. And as previously, I would advise testing out all the elements of your hardware that need to work, and then if everything's okay and you're happy, you could do an install, which is very like what we did with ChromeOS Flex. We'll first sign out, and then click on Install FydeOS. Here we even have the option for a multi-boot installation, although here we'll go with the default full disk. Unlike in ChromeOS Flex, we get to see the drive we're about to install on, and if we're happy, we can then click on Install. And there we are, the installation is completed. So we will shut down, remove our USB drive, and turn the power back on. After which we then need to repeat the first run process, which I'll quickly speed through. And here we are running FydeOS with our application launcher on the left and a menu on the right, just as we saw in ChromeOS Flex. ChromeOS Flex and FydeOS are mainly intended for running cloud applications. However, on most hardware, it's possible to add an integrated virtual machine for running local Linux software. I've covered this in depth in another video. But in short, in either ChromeOS Flex or FydeOS, if we go to the launcher and find a terminal icon, we can then click to set up the Linux virtual machine. And all we have to do is to go across to Developers and click on Set up Linux Development Environment, and then click on Next, where we can confirm or enter a username and virtual disk allocation, and click on Install. Once complete, we end up with a working Linux terminal, and I think I'll just clear the screen. And I'm also going to update our repositories with a sudo apt and update, like that. After which, let's install the GIMP photo editor with a sudo apt install and GIMP. And if we now close down settings to be tidy and look in the menu, down here we've now got a folder for Linux applications, and we can indeed launch the GNU image manipulation program. By way of demonstration, over in FydeOS, I've also set up the Linux development environment with a test install of LibreOffice and Solitaire. And you can learn more in the previous Explaining Computers episode that I'll link in the video description. As Windows 10 nears end of support, ChromeOS Flex or FydeOS could be a good alternative for computers that are mainly used for online activities. Although do remember the lack of support for computers with an NVIDIA graphics card. But most laptops and most desktops with AMD or integrated graphics should work just fine. Although, as I've also stressed in this video, I would very strongly recommend testing things out first by running ChromeOS Flex or FydeOS from USB drive to make sure that everything works on your hardware before you commit to replacing Windows 10. But now that's it for another video. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, please press that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And I hope to talk to you again very soon.